Greetings and welcome to the channel for Sleepy Science. We'll be exploring the serene, lush realm of forests tonight, a place full of breath, life, and innumerable wonders. The familiar sights are all around us. We've all seen the tall trees, the leaf carpet, and the dappled sunlight coming through the branches. However, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. A few of the trees in our immediate vicinity have endured for centuries. We're just starting to learn the stories their rings tell. An entire ecosystem that is no bigger than your hand may be found in a simple patch of moss. Additionally, we might not be able to hear the rustle of leaves above. We see the forest every day, and it never ceases to amaze us because it is both commonplace and magical. I encourage you to like, subscribe, or leave a brief comment if you appreciate these introspective musings. It also makes it easier for others to find their way here. One drowsy person at a time. For now, though, you just need to relax, find a place to call home, and let the forest's peace carry you. Let's get started. The guardians of old. Each forest starts with a single seed that finds its way into the ground. It's humbling to realize that every tree, no matter how big, was once something small enough to fit in your palm when you're standing in a forest full of giants. A tiny seed, possibly dropped by a bird or carried by the wind, landed precisely where moisture and sunlight met. In search of stability and water, roots pushed downward from that precarious beginning. A delicate shoot appeared, exposed to the shade of its neighbors, hungry animals, and freezing temperatures. But it continued somehow. It grew taller every year, its branches reaching ever higher toward the light as its trunk thickened. The journey from seed to sapling to mature tree is known to foresters as the forest's life cycle. Every stage presents fresh difficulties as well as fresh connections to the outside world. What started as a single weak seed grows into decades or even centuries. A foundation of the ecosystem, a source of shade, a haven for innumerable animals, and a silent observer of time passing. To stroll among these trees is to stroll among those who have survived. They are all examples of perseverance and fortitude. When ancient civilizations first emerged, some of the trees that are still alive today were just saplings. Throughout the rise and fall of empires, the world's oldest trees have endured. It has been determined that bristlecone pines in the California mountains are over 4,000 years old. When the pyramids were being constructed in Egypt, they were already very old. Touching one of their old trunks feels like touching something that has persisted for thousands of years in the history of humanity. They have been put to the test by ice ages, fires, droughts, and storms, but they are still there. These elderly people grow slowly. Occasionally they only gain a millimeter or so in width annually. They have dense, resinous wood that is impervious to insects and rot. Scientists can read the climate's history over thousands of years in their rings, observing wet years with broader growth and droughts represented by narrow bands. These trees are living libraries, wooden repositories of the planet's history. One can feel the weight of deep time gently pressing against the present when they realize that such ancient beings are still alive and well, growing and photosynthesizing in silence. A single tree forest is the largest living thing on the planet. In Utah, a forest of quaking aspen or poe looks like thousands of separate trees, but they all have the same root system underneath the ground. Poe is a single, massive organism that has cloned itself thousands of times. It is not a forest of trees. It is over 100 acres in size and weighs an estimated 6 million kilograms. It is among the oldest living things on Earth, with roots that could be tens of thousands of years old. Every autumn, its leaves all turn golden at once, creating a sea of shimmering yellow that sways with the wind. To walk through Po is to walk inside a vast, interconnected single being. It serves as a reminder that forests are living networks, communities where boundaries are blurred and life flows between what we consider to be distinct groups of people. The forest considers the whole rather than just one tree. Trees have underground networks that allow them to communicate with one another. There is a huge communications network buried beneath your feet. The wood wide web, as scientists refer to it, is created when fungal threads known as mycorrhizae entwine with tree roots. Trees can exchange water, nutrients, and even chemical signals thanks to these connections. A big, established mother tree may provide sugars to her young children who may be struggling in the shade. An insect attack on one tree can trigger the production of defensive chemicals by its neighbors before the threat even reaches them by sending warning signals through the network. Our understanding of forests has changed as a result of this discovery. They are cooperative communities where the strong help the weak and information spreads like whispers through the soil, rather than just groups of people vying for resources. In return for the sugars that trees produce through photosynthesis, fungi serve as middlemen between trees. We cannot hear the conversations that are taking place on the forest floor, a continuous flow of messages and nutrients that keeps the whole forest alive. Walking through a forest is like walking over a secret cooperative world. Entire forests with thousands of trees connected can be covered by fungus networks. Under forests, mycorrhizal networks are not tiny or solitary. In a woodland, a single fungal individual can connect hundreds or even thousands of trees over kilometers. A distributed system of communication and resource sharing that benefits the entire ecosystem. These networks are so vast that some scientists refer to them as a form of forest intelligence. The trees give the fungi carbon in the form of sugars, and the fungi give the trees access to nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen that they take up from the soil. However, the relationship is more than just a business deal. Nutrients can move from areas of high abundance to areas of greatest need via these networks. Through the fungal web, a diseased tree may distribute its remaining resources to its neighbors, guaranteeing that its legacy lives on. Small and vulnerable seedlings are supported by the network, and when they are linked to these subterranean highways, their survival rates significantly rise. As a superorganism, the forest functions. Its members were connected in ways that we are still learning about. Although some trees have a lifespan of thousands of years, their seeds can survive for even longer. While most trees live for decades or centuries, time moves differently for them. The ability to produce seeds that can wait has evolved in certain species. After being dormant for over a millennium, lotus seeds found in a dry lake bed in China were successfully resurrected. These seeds had patiently awaited the return of favorable conditions while covered in protective coverings. They sprouted as if no time had passed when they finally came into contact with warmth and moisture. One of nature's most amazing tactics is its capacity to pause and wait through adverse circumstances. Buried seeds can create what ecologists refer to as a seed bank, which is a storehouse of potential life that is just waiting for an opening to be created by disturbance. When the canopy is cleared by a fire, flood, or windstorm, these dormant seeds come alive and scramble to take advantage of the fresh light and room. The forest is made up of more than just the trees that are visible. It also contains the unseen potential that lies beneath them, waiting to be realized as the next generation when the time comes. Forest soil can be destroyed in an instant, but it takes centuries to form. Beneath the forest, The rich, dark earth appears stable and unchanging. Nevertheless, it is among the most valuable and delicate substances on the planet. Dead wood, fallen leaves, and the decomposition of innumerable organisms all contribute to the gradual formation of forest soil. While earthworms and insects stir and ventilate the layers, fungi and bacteria decompose organic matter. Rocks weather into minerals, which enrich the mixture with nutrients. This process produces the rich, deep soils that sustain tall trees and a variety of life over hundreds or even thousands of years. However, this slowly constructed soil can be lost very quickly. In a single season, rain and wind can erase centuries' worth of accumulated wealth when trees are cut down and the earth's roots are no longer able to hold it in place. The soil deteriorates, losing its fertility and structure in the absence of the canopy's protection and the continuous input of falling leaves. Forest soil is more than just dirt. It is a living matrix that supports more organisms than there are people on the planet. Preserving forests entails preserving these invisible communities and the underpinnings they offer. There are billions of organisms in a single handful of forest soil. You can hold an entire universe in your palm if you pick up a handful of forest floor. According to scientists, there are billions of bacteria, millions of fungi, thousands of protozoa, and innumerable nematodes, mites, and other microscopic organisms living in that tiny area. Each of these organisms contributes to the breakdown of organic matter, the cycling of nutrients, and the preservation of soil health, forming a complex food web. Some consume bacteria, some consume dead plant matter, and some are predators that hunt even smaller prey. The survival of the forest depends on this tiny community. Dead leaves and fallen trees would keep piling up without these decomposers, snagging the nutrients that living plants require to thrive. By disassembling complexity into simplicity, these microscopic workers restore nitrogen, phosphorus, and other elements to forms that roots can absorb. The forest's apparent grandeur is solely dependent on this unseen labor force that toils in the shadowy ground. Each tree is supported by billions of invisible partners in addition to its roots. The living receive nutrients from the dead through decomposition. In the forest, dying is a metamorphosis rather than a conclusion. A tree doesn't just vanish when it falls, it eventually turns into soil, food, and habitat. The dead wood is colonized by fungi. Through the cambium and bark, their mycelium is spreading. Beetles excavated tunnels that served as both habitats for their larvae and routes for additional deterioration. In their quest for insects, woodpeckers pound away at the softening exterior. The log gradually crumbles over the years, its structure disintegrating into pieces and eventually turning into rich humus. The health of forests depends on this process, known as decomposition. Nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and other nutrients that are locked in the tree's wood are progressively returned to the soil for use by living trees. A forest is a closed system that recycles its materials indefinitely. Once a towering giant, it now provides food for seedlings that are growing in the rich soil where it fell. In old forests, one frequently sees nurse logs, moss-covered fallen trees, and emerging saplings. Observable evidence of this death-rebirth cycle. New generations of trees grow from fallen logs. Seedlings find it difficult to establish themselves on the dense, dark forest floor in many forests, especially in moist, temperate regions. However, fallen logs provide a unique experience. They are elevated above the ground, which allows them to avoid some of the competition. Even during dry spells, their decomposing wood retains moisture like a sponge, supplying consistent water. Young roots can directly access the nutrients released by the log's breakdown. These logs are frequently colonized first by moss, which produces a soft, moist bed that is ideal for seed germination. Tree rows are common when strolling through an old-growth forest. As though planted on purpose, their trunks lined up. Ancient nurse logs that have long since decomposed and once supported a generation of seedlings are marked by these rows. Where their nurse once lay, the young trees that were rooted in the log lived and eventually grew to stand in a line. It is among the most poetic patterns found in the forest. With their bodies serving as cradles for the following generation, the old are literally giving birth to the new. In the forest, death and life are partners in an endless dance rather than antagonists. Compared to newly planted woods, old-growth forests are more resilient. The level of richness varies among forests. Younger forests lack the complexity found in old-growth forests, which have grown over centuries without significant disturbance. Towering canopy trees, a middle story of younger or shade-tolerant species, and a varied understory of shrubs and herbs make up their structure. Snags, or dead-standing trees, are an essential source of habitat for cavity-nesting birds and woodpeckers. The floor is littered with fallen logs in varying states of decay. Each is a microhabitat that is home to innumerable species. Biological diversity is a direct result of this structural diversity. Compared to uniform, even-aged plantations, old-growth forests are home to a far greater variety of birds, mammals, insects, fungi, and plants. Ancient trees that are hundreds of years old fill niches that are just not available in younger forests. Due to the unique conditions brought about by centuries of undisturbed growth, certain lichens, mosses, and fungi are only found in these older woods. An old-growth forest is a cathedral of biodiversity, where time has woven complex relationships that are impossible to replicate in a short amount of time. There are forests that have never been cleared by humans. There are still forests that have never seen an axe or chainsaw in a world where human activity is influencing things more and more. In isolated areas of each forested continent are these primary forests, which have not been touched by logging. Large areas of the Amazon are still inaccessible by air or river, making them too far away and challenging for widespread exploitation. Huge boreal forests that have escaped large-scale harvesting are found throughout Siberia's icy and isolated landscapes. Steep terrain and thin soils have protected some woodlands in mountainous areas around the world by making logging them unprofitable. These primary forests are extremely valuable. They include ecological relationships and species assemblages that have evolved over thousands of years. Their soils retain all of their depth and complexity when they are not disturbed by machinery. Their genetic diversity, which has been maintained over many generations, might contain adaptations that we are still unaware of. These forests serve as reference points for scientists who are researching how natural systems behave when left to their own devices. Standing in an unlogged forest offers a glimpse of the wild, self-sustaining world that existed before humans took over. The edges of forests are some of the planet's most biodiverse environments. A unique zone appears where the forest meets the field, meadow, or water. These transition zones, which ecologists refer to as ecotones, are incredibly abundant in life. Because the forest edge receives more sunlight than the interior, shade-tolerant species can coexist with sun-loving plants. More insects are supported by this greater plant diversity, and more birds, small mammals, and other predators are drawn to them. Edges are ideal habitats for deer and elk because they frequently feed in meadows but hide in forest cover when threatened. The reason that distinct communities are frequently supported by fragmented forests as opposed to intact ones is explained by this edge effect. The percentage of edge habitat rises sharply when a large forest is divided into smaller patches. This is advantageous to certain species, which flourish in the varied, fruitful edge zones. Others suffer as the interior gets smaller, especially those that are suited to deep forest conditions. Since it shows how the size and form of protected areas affect the species they can support, an understanding of edge effects is essential for conservation. The forest is not homogeneous. Rather, it is a patchwork of environments that sustain various life forms. The entire forest beneath canopy trees is shaped by them. Not only are the tallest trees in a forest the largest individuals, but they are also the ones that reach the canopy layer and spread their crowns in full sunlight. The world below them is their creation. Which plants can thrive on the forest floor depends on how their leaves absorb sunlight and provide shade. Their crowns catch rain during storms, and some of the water evaporates before it reaches the ground. Water drips and flows from the canopy to the ground, forming moisture distribution and erosion patterns. Their leaves fall in huge quantities in the fall, covering the ground with organic matter that provides food for the entire community of decomposers. An ecosystem-wide effect occurs when a canopy tree dies or falls. A shaft of light suddenly reaches the forest floor, starting a race between dormant seeds and suppressed saplings. The space left by the fall of one tree develops into a patch of rapid development and transformation, a disturbance that boosts the diversity of the forest as a whole. Keystone structures are canopy trees. The nature of everything below is determined by their presence or absence. One must look up to where these giants rule in order to comprehend a forest. The canopy of the forest is a separate ecosystem. Most people never see the whole world that exists in the sunlit realm of the canopy, far above the forest floor. Specialized plants, or epiphytes, such as orchids and bromeliads, which grow on branches without ever touching the ground, are found in this upper layer. The diversity of insects that flourish in the canopy is astounding, from pollinating bees to caterpillars that consume leaves. Among the branches are nesting birds, monkeys, sloths, and even frogs live their whole lives dozens of meters above the ground in tropical forests. The last biological frontier, the canopy, is as challenging to explore as the deep sea, according to scientists who study it. Researchers reach these heights using hot air balloons, construction cranes, and climbing ropes, and they find new species at a startling rate. Rain is caught by the canopy, resulting in a humid microclimate. Its leaves produce the sugars that sustain the entire tree and the organisms that depend on it by photosynthesizing at their highest rates. Even though forests are visible from the ground, a large portion of their life and productivity takes place in the open, airy space above, a layer as separate as the floor. The understory is shaped by the patterns in which sunlight passes through the leaves. Instead of the brilliant, direct sunlight found in open areas, the light that reaches the forest floor is something that has been altered. The red and blue wavelengths are absorbed by the leaves as they move through the canopy, most beneficial for photosynthesis, letting in green light. This gives interior forests their distinctive emerald glow. As leaves flutter in the wind, dapples of brightness dance across the ground, changing the pattern of light continuously. These short bursts of direct light, known as sunflecks, are essential for understory plants because they give them the energy boosts they need to grow slowly. Different light conditions have led to different plant adaptations. Some species, known as shade-tolerant species, can photosynthesize slowly but steadily while surviving with little light. Other demanding species can only establish in the spaces left by fallen canopy trees and need full light. Different communities are supported by the patchwork of conditions created by this variation in light availability across the forest floor. As trees grow, branches fall, and storms create openings, the forest is a mosaic of light and dark rather than a consistent blanket of shade. In the forest, existence is characterized by patterns of light and shadow. A vertical architecture of life is produced by the layers of forests. A mature forest is a multi-layered structure rather than a single story. Every level supports a variety of life forms. The crowns of the dominant trees that receive full sun are located in the highest canopy layer. Smaller trees and the shaded lower branches of canopy species are found beneath it in the subcanopy. Young trees and shrubs that have adapted to low light levels make up the understory. The ground is covered with grasses, ferns, and wildflowers in the herb layer. Lastly, fungi, insects, and soil organisms can be found on the forest floor itself, which is covered in leaf litter and fallen wood. The forest's ability to sustain life is increased by this stratification. Rarely do birds with distinct layer specializations directly compete with one another. Warblers harvest insects from the canopy foliage, and thrushes rummage through the ground's leaf litter. Mice burrow in the ground, and squirrels build their nests in tree cavities. Every layer has a unique microclimate, with variations in wind, humidity, and temperature from the ground to the canopy. One of the reasons forests sustain such remarkable biodiversity is because of this vertical complexity. They are three-dimensional structures rather than flat ecosystems, forming a variety of niches in one location. Dead leaves are only one type of leaf litter. The forest floor is covered in a carpet of fallen leaves, which appears to be nothing more than detritus waiting to decompose. However, leaf litter is a separate ecosystem. It acts as insulation, shielding plant roots and soil life from harsh temperatures. By retaining moisture, it keeps things humid and slows down evaporation. It feeds the trees that produced it by slowly releasing nutrients as it breaks down. There are countless creatures that inhabit it. A complex food web based on detritus is formed by spiders, mites, millipedes, beetles, and springtails. The leaf litter layer in some forests can be several centimeters deep, indicating years of build-up. You can hear hundreds of thousands of leaves crunching and rustling as you walk through it. The sound of history layered beneath your feet is what makes autumnal woods so distinctive. High in the canopy, each leaf used to feed the tree and perform photosynthetic functions. It feeds the forest one last time, now browning and fallen. Only when these leaves have completely returned to the soil does the cycle come to an end. They changed, but did not lose their substance. A large portion of the oxygen we breathe is produced by forest respiration. Green plants release oxygen during photosynthesis, which is present in every breath you take. Forests are just as important as ocean phytoplankton, especially the enormous tropical and boreal forests that cover enormous swaths of land. The leaves of trees use the energy of the sun to split water molecules into sugars and absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during the day. It releases oxygen as a byproduct. 2 people's worth of oxygen can be produced in a year by a single large tree. The magnitude becomes evident when you multiply that by the billions of trees that make up Earth's forests. Because of this process, forests are frequently referred to as the planet's lungs. They inhale what we exhale and exhale what we require for survival. Intimate and long-standing, the relationship is interwoven with the very chemistry of life. Walking in a forest is like breathing in newly oxygenated air. The leaves above are a gift with every breath. Our breath is the breath of the forest, a relationship that connects us to these green communities in the most basic manner. Carbon dioxide is absorbed by trees and stored for decades or even centuries. In addition to generating oxygen, trees are essential for controlling the planet's temperature. One of the main greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, is absorbed by them through photosynthesis, and the carbon is then incorporated into their wood, roots, and leaves. Over the course of its life, a single tree can store hundreds of kilograms of carbon. An estimated 300 billion tons of carbon are stored by forests collectively, which is more than the atmosphere as a whole. The carbon that has been stored in wood for decades or even centuries contributes to regulating the planet's temperature. This stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide when forests are cut down and burned, which contributes to climate change. On the other hand, because forests absorb carbon from the atmosphere and store it in living wood, their preservation and growth can aid in reducing global warming. With their enormous ancient trees, old-growth forests are especially significant carbon sinks. In the global carbon cycle, all forests, from tropical rainforests to northern boreal woodlands, breathe in greenhouse gases and convert them into the solid matter of trunks and branches. Chlorophyll absorbs sunlight, which powers photosynthesis. Chlorophyll, the molecule that enables photosynthesis, is responsible for the green hue of leaves. It is not an accident. In order to power the chemical reactions that turn carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen, chlorophyll absorbs red and blue light from the sun. The distinctive color of leaves is a reflection of the green wavelengths that the plant does not use. One of the most significant molecules on Earth and the basis of almost all life is this straightforward pigment. Deciduous trees break down their chlorophyll and extract its valuable nutrients into their woody tissues in the fall as they get ready for winter. Other colors that were previously hidden become visible once the green pigment is removed. Carotenoids produce yellow, xanthophylls produce orange, and anthocyanins produce red. The removal of the green veil of chlorophyll is what turns the forest into a tapestry of color, not the addition of new pigments. This yearly spectacle serves as a reminder of the power of photosynthesis and the intricate chemistry that transforms light into life in each leaf. While leaves are the main organs of photosynthesis, some trees can also photosynthesize through their bark. Certain trees have developed the capacity to use their bark for photosynthetic processes. In species that have adapted to harsh environments where optimizing carbon capture is essential for survival, this is especially prevalent. For instance, the greenish bark of young aspen trees contains chlorophyll. These trees can continue to produce trace amounts of sugars through their trunks, even after they lose their leaves in the fall. The tree can eke out more energy when conditions allow thanks to this adaptation, which gives it an advantage in cold climates with short growing seasons. In marginal environments, every bit helps, even though bark photosynthesis is usually less efficient than leaf photosynthesis. It exhibits the inventiveness of nature by coming up with several answers to the same problem. Trees are active innovators that are always trying to survive and absorb energy. They are not just passive organisms. This hidden potential is hinted at by the green tint of aspen or beech tree bark, which serves as a silent reminder that photosynthesis takes place anywhere favorable conditions exist. Local rainfall and climate are controlled by forests. Forests actively influence the climate rather than merely reacting to it. Trees release water vapor from their leaves through transpiration, which makes the air more humid. Under the correct circumstances, this moisture can condense into clouds and then return as rain. In expansive forests, especially those that are tropical, through moisture cycling between the forest and atmosphere, this process produces what scientists refer to as a rain pump. For instance, The Amazon rainforest uses this mechanism to produce a large portion of its own rainfall. These cycles can be upset by deforestation, which lowers rainfall and modifies climate patterns well beyond the cleared area. Trees also help to regulate the temperature. Evapotranspiration cools the air, and their shade cools the ground beneath them. This effect is immediately apparent on a hot day when strolling through a forest. Compared to adjacent open spaces, the temperature can drop by several degrees. The canopy traps heat and keeps frost from forming on the forest floor at night, acting as a blanket. All forest life benefits from these temperature adjustments, which also create stable conditions that sustain a variety of communities. The climate both shapes and is shaped by the forest, a dynamic contributor to atmospheric processes. Trees don't have to grow much for decades or even centuries. Trees may add nearly undetectable girth each year in harsh conditions with limited nutrients, high temperatures, or brief growing seasons. Some Arctic or alpine trees grow so slowly that they can be 100 years old with a trunk as thick as your wrist. These trees endure by exercising patience, waiting out bad years, and maximizing the few good ones that come along. They have tight-grained, dense wood. A year of tenacity is symbolized by each narrow ring. This patience teaches us a valuable lesson. These slowly growing trees serve as a reminder that endurance has value in a world that frequently prioritizes speed and productivity. Where faster-growing species cannot, they thrive, being obstinate enough to outlast rivals. In a year, some bristlecone pines produce less than a millimeter of wood, but they have endured for thousands of years. Their secret is not expansion, but survival, not growth, but perseverance. They teach us that sometimes the biggest accomplishment is just keeping going year after year. One of the planet's most biodiverse ecosystems is the Symphony of Life forest. A forest is the best place to see life at its most concentrated. Forests are home to an incredible variety of species, especially in the tropics. There are more ant species on a single tree in the Amazon than there are in the British Isles combined. Thousands of insect species, hundreds of bird species, and an untold number of bacterial and fungal species can all be found in a temperate forest. The structural complexity, long-term stability, and innumerable niches that forests offer are the sources of this biodiversity. Biodiversity is a network of relationships rather than a single number. Every species interacts with numerous others. When one species is eliminated due to habitat, competition, food, or symbiosis, the effects can sometimes have unexpected repercussions. Forests serve as a reminder that all living things, from the tiniest bacteria to the biggest trees, are part of communities and do not exist in isolation. In a biodiverse forest, each thread is interconnected with every other thread in patterns of nearly infinite complexity, making the forest a living tapestry to walk through. On Earth, certain forest species are unique. Oceans, mountains, or climate can separate forests. Additionally, these isolated populations develop into unique species over time. There are endemic species in many forests, creatures that are unique to this planet. Lemurs, chameleons, and plants that are exclusive to Madagascar can be found in its forests, which have been cut off from mainland Africa for millions of years. Hummingbirds and orchids unique to certain valleys can be found in cloud forests found in South American mountains. There are species that evolved in particular areas and never spread outside of them, known as endemics, even in temperate forests. Each forest is unique due to the presence of these endemic species. When an endemic species' habitat is destroyed, their distinct evolutionary paths are interrupted, and they completely disappear from the planet. Because these forests contain life forms that are unique to these locations, conservation efforts frequently give priority to forests with high endemism. Millions of years of evolution are represented by each endemic species, a one-of-a-kind test of what life can become. Preserving forests entails preserving these unique strands in the fabric of existence. For food and nesting, birds rely on forests. A chorus that highlights the value of forests for birds can be heard when strolling through one at dawn. Trees offer a variety of nesting locations, ranging from platforms of woven twigs high in the canopy to cavities in old trunks. Food is abundant in forests. Crawling insects on leaves and bark. Fruits and seeds ripen as the seasons change. Nectar from flowers. Because they cannot survive in other environments, many bird species are forced to live in forests. Dead trees are necessary for woodpeckers to nest and forage. In certain forest layers, warblers harvest insects from leaves. On the forest floor, owls hunt rodents. Forests are essential to migratory birds at both ends of their journeys. Wintering in tropical forests thousands of kilometers away, neotropical migrants breed in temperate forests in North America. These species are at risk due to forest loss in both areas. The health of forests can be determined by looking at bird populations. Declining numbers frequently indicate more serious issues with the ecosystem. Their calls and songs are more than just nice noises. They are signs of a healthy woodland community. In a forest, the sound of birdsong is the forest itself announcing its vitality. Forests are home to mammals ranging from mice to bears. Mammals can find everything they need in forests: shelter, food, water, and room. Mice, shrews, and other small mammals scuttle through the litter and leaves, consuming fungi, seeds, and insects. When squirrels forget their stores, they unintentionally plant trees while harvesting nuts and caching them for the winter. Hares and rabbits graze on bark and young shoots. By consuming understory plants and tree bark, larger herbivores such as deer and elk help to shape the structure of forests. These herbivores are hunted by predators like bobcats, coyotes, and foxes, which preserve equilibrium. Bears, omnivores that consume everything from berries to salmon to carrion, are at the top of many forest food webs. These big mammals are essential to healthy forests because they spread seeds, cause disturbances, and recycle nutrients. Their existence suggests a forest that is big and untamed enough to sustain intricate food chains. Large areas and an uninterrupted forest are necessary for the survival of many mammal species. Genetic diversity is diminished, and populations are isolated as a result of fragmentation. The ancient community that completes woodlands includes all of the forest's mammals, from the tiniest shrew to the largest bear. In every forest, insects make up the hidden majority. There are thousands of insects you never see for every bird you see or mammal you hear. The majority of animals in forests are insects, which serve as pollinators, decomposers, and predators. Beetles accelerated decay by gnawing through dead wood and bark, as caterpillars, butterflies, and moths consume leaves, transferring energy from plant to animal. Pollination of flowers by bees and wasps makes reproduction possible. Ants defend their territories, construct intricate nests, and grow fungi. Despite being bothersome to people, flies and mosquitoes are food for many birds and bats. Insects are essential to the survival of forests. Decomposition would become sluggish. There would be no pollination. Birds would go hungry. Insects' inconspicuousness belies their significance. Although the majority are small, nocturnal, or concealed in soil and bark cracks, they are incredibly diverse and numerous, carrying out vital functions. Hundreds of insect species, each suited to feed on particular parts or stages, can be found on a single tree. Understanding insects, the microscopic powerhouses that power the entire ecosystem, is essential to understanding forests. The damp conditions that forests offer are ideal for amphibians. Forests provide the perfect habitat for salamanders, frogs, and toads. Because of their permeable skin, they need moisture, which forests supply through the presence of streams and vernal pools, as well as shaded, humid understory. Secretive and frequently nocturnal, salamanders eat insects and other invertebrates while living in leaf litter and beneath logs. Some species only ever come into contact with water to breed. They live their whole lives in forests. More reliant on standing water, frogs and toads breed in wetlands and forest ponds before moving out into the woods to hunt. Amphibians are sensitive environmental health indicators. They are susceptible to pollution due to their permeable skin, and because of their intricate life cycles and need for both aquatic and terrestrial habitats, they require ecosystems that are healthy and interconnected. Global amphibian population declines are an indication of environmental stress. We observe proof of clean water, intact habitat, and healthy ecosystems in forests where amphibians flourish with their nighttime choruses and solitary daytime lives. Their existence is a boon, an indication that the forest is still robust enough to sustain these fragile animals. Reptiles hunt in the dark and lounge in forest clearings. Reptiles still find places in forests despite the fact that their diversity is lower than in open environments. Along the forest floor, snakes hunt. Some specialize in amphibians or insects, while others eat small mammals and birds. In clearings, lizards lounge on sun-warmed logs and rocks, quickly retreating into hiding when they feel threatened. Between feeding areas, turtles lumber through undergrowth when water is available. Some snakes scale trees to rest on branches or hunt bird nests. Because of their cold-blooded physiology, reptiles are most prevalent along forest edges and in crevices where sunlight can reach the ground. Despite this, they are essential forest inhabitants that regulate prey populations and provide food for larger predators. Reptile diversity rises sharply in tropical forests, where innumerable species of snakes, lizards, and other animals occupy every conceivable niche. The sound of a snake rustling through leaves or a turtle crossing a forest path, even in temperate forests, serves as a reminder that forests are home to life in forms we may not always recognize. The majority of forest plants have relationships with fungi. Simply put, the mushrooms you see are the fruiting bodies of enormous fungal networks that are concealed in wood and soil. Although they belong to a different kingdom and are not plants, fungi are vital to the health of forests. As was previously mentioned, many fungi develop mycorrhizal relationships with tree roots in which they exchange nutrients for sugars. Others break down complex compounds and release nutrients as they decompose dead wood and leaf litter. Some of them are parasites that harm living trees and spread illness. Others collaborate with algae to produce lichens that cover rocks and bark. The diversity of fungi in forests is astounding. Thousands of fungal species can be found in a single forest, the majority of which either never produce visible fruiting bodies or only do so infrequently. The forest's unseen weavers are fungi, which link, break down, and facilitate. Without them, the nutrients that are trapped in dead matter would cause forests to drown in their own waste. The mushrooms that grow after fall rains are only the beginning, glimpses of the extensive subterranean network that is always in operation. Discovering a hidden aspect of forest life is the goal of studying fungi. Forest-dwelling algae and fungi form alliances called lichens. Patches of color, such as pale green, bright orange, or silvery gray, are frequently visible when you closely examine tree bark, rocks, or even fallen branches. These are lichens, which are symbiotic organisms made up of algae and fungi. While the algae photosynthesize and produce food for both partners, the fungus offers structure and protection. When they work together, they can endure situations that neither of them could on their own. From humid forest bark to desert rocks to the Arctic tundra, lichens have several functions in forests. They give insects and other invertebrates food. They serve as nesting material for certain birds. They are browsed by deer and elk, particularly during the winter months when there is a lack of other food. Lichens also serve as markers of air quality. Numerous species are susceptible to pollution and go extinct when the air becomes tainted. A forest with clean air is one that is abundant in lichens. Some lichen colonies may be hundreds of years old due to their slow growth. Decade after decade, old alliances silently continue on the same branch. Cooperation is demonstrated when lichens adorn bark. Mutualism is the basis of life. The forest floor and trees are covered in mosses, emerald-layered trunks. Mosses thrive where there is residual moisture. These tiny, uncomplicated plants take up water and nutrients through their leaves instead of having actual roots. They cover fallen logs and drape tree trunks in soft green blankets to create dense carpets on the ground in humid forests. The moss is supple and springy underfoot, much like nature's carpet. Tiny invertebrates flourish in the humid microhabitats that mosses create beneath themselves by retaining moisture. They also serve as germination beds for larger plants by trapping seeds. By sending up tiny stalks capped with spore capsules, mosses reproduce by producing spores. Millions of microscopic spores are released by these mature capsules for wind-borne transportation. Spores germinate and develop into new moss plants when they land in the right places. This reproductive strategy is hundreds of millions of years older than flowering plants. Mosses are some of the earliest land plants on Earth, and their presence in forests transports us back to a time when these uncomplicated plants were trailblazers. Colonizing bare rock first, then establishing the prerequisites for later, more complex life. Ferns in the shaded understory spread out their fronds. Ferns spread their beautiful fronds in the dappled light of the forest floor. Ferns are ancient plants that reproduce by spores rather than seeds, like mosses. They flourish in the moist, shady environment that forests offer. Their fragile leaves are well suited to absorbing little light. While some fern species are epiphytic, that is, they grow on tree trunks and branches without parasitizing their hosts, others grow directly on the ground. Tree ferns can reach remarkable heights in tropical forests, resembling palms with their spreading crowns and thick trunks. In the past, ferns were far more common than they are now. Giant ferns and their relatives created enormous swamp forests that eventually turned into coal deposits more than 300 million years ago during the Carboniferous period. The ferns of today, which are still lovely but no longer dominant, are traces of that ancient lineage. A process that hasn't changed in hundreds of millions of years is what it's like to watch a fern frond unfold in the spring, its coiled fiddleheads slowly opening. Ferns link the past and present of the forest. Living fossils serve as a reminder of the lengthy history of life. Before the canopy closes, wildflowers briefly bloom. Every spring, a remarkable phenomenon takes place in temperate, deciduous forests. The forest floor gets plenty of sunlight before the trees completely leaf out. The ground is covered in color as wildflowers bloom in this fleeting moment. Before the canopy closes and the shade returns, trillium, bloodroot, spring beauty, and violets bloom, photosynthesize, and set seed. The entire life cycle of these so-called spring ephemerals has been tailored to this limited window of opportunity. Their beauty is intense but short-lived. The brown forest floor becomes a garden for a few weeks. After emerging from their winter hibernation, pollinators visit the flowers and exchange nectar for pollen. The majority of spring ephemerals have completed their above-ground work by early summer, at which point they die back and store their energy in underground bulbs and rhizomes to endure the long, shaded summer. It is akin to finding a hidden treasure when strolling through a forest during this spring bloom. Only those who come at the right time can access this hidden garden. The forest's voices. There are many sounds in forests that we frequently ignore. Listen while standing silently in a forest. A symphony of subtle sounds will be audible beyond the obvious bird calls and rustling leaves. The wind-tossed creak of branches, the sound of pine cones or acorns falling, a small mammal rustling through leaf litter, the hum of insects, the sound of a woodpecker drumming in the distance, the trickle of a stream that is hidden. Every sound has a story to tell. There is proof of life and progress everywhere you look. The forest is alive with soft chatter and never really quiet. The soundscapes of various forests vary. Birdsong, howler monkeys, and insect calls abound in tropical rainforests. Because insects emerge in the summer and fall silent in the winter, temperate forests produce more subdued sounds that vary with the seasons. It can seem uncanny how silent boreal forests can be. Occasionally, the sound of a raven's call or the wind through spruce needles would break their silence. Gaining an understanding of forest sounds and their meanings will help you build a stronger bond with the area. We can communicate with the unseen life around us through sound. The sound of wind through trees is a form of music. The sound of the wind blowing through the canopy is one of the most exquisite sounds in the forest. Trees react differently, producing a range of tones. The sound of pine needles is like distant water, a sibilant whisper. The name comes from the characteristic trembling rustle made by aspen leaves fluttering on flattened stems. The deeper rushing sound is produced by the larger and wider quaking leaves of aspens, oaks, and maples. The constant susurrus of moving leaves is broken by branches that creak, moan, and crack in strong winds. This music is an emergent quality of air and leaves, branches, and trunks. It has no composer. It fluctuates according to the direction and speed of the wind, the amount of foliage during the season, and the moisture content of the weather. In a forest, no two moments sound exactly the same. Since the beginning of time, people have listened to this music, finding inspiration, comfort, and a sense of belonging to something greater than themselves. The voice of the forest is the wind in the trees. It speaks without words, but with meaning nonetheless. Birds sing to mark their territory and entice potential mates. Every spring, as birds return from migration or break out of their winter silence, forests come alive with song. In order to advertise their presence to competitors and their suitability to possible mates, males sing in established territories. Birds can identify their own species thanks to their unique songs, which are either innate or learned from parents. Simple phrases are repeated in certain songs. Others are intricate, varied, and minute long compositions. They form the dawn chorus together. When birds are most vocal, an hour after sunrise, there is an amazing outburst of song. Acquiring the ability to recognize birds by their songs adds a new level of forest experience. Especially in the thick summer foliage, you will hear far more birds than you will ever see. The buzzing trill of a warbler, the flute-like melody of a distant thrush, or the drumming of a woodpecker on a resonant snag all become identifiable signatures. We can listen in on birdsong to gain insight into the thoughts and worries of forest dwellers. Birdsong is one of the most beautiful and accessible of the forest's many languages. Frogs sing in pools and wetlands in forests. Another voice enters the forest soundscape in the spring as the snow melts and the pools fill. To entice females, male frogs make calls. Depending on the species, their voices can range from high peeps to deep croaks. Under the correct circumstances, hundreds or thousands of frogs may call at once, filling the night with a deafening chorus. Vernal pools, which are transient wetlands that fill in the spring and dry out by the summer, are the sites of these breeding aggregations. They are perfect nurseries because they are transient and do not have fish that would consume frog eggs. One of nature's most potent sounds is the frog chorus, a primordial symphony proclaiming the return and profusion of life. In an attempt to be selected, each male repeatedly calls throughout the night while inflating his vocal sac. The calls have a layered, pulsing sound that sounds almost electronic due to their variations in rhythm and pitch. You are listening to one of the oldest sounds on Earth, the chorus of spring frogs. Long before there were humans or even mammals, this ritual was performed repeatedly for hundreds of millions of years. It links the beginning of terrestrial life and ancient swamps to the current forest. In summer forests, insects produce a background hum. The sounds of insects fill the air during the sweltering summer months, especially in temperate and tropical forests. In trees, cicadas buzz so loudly that they can overpower human speech. In the understory, katydids snarl. Chirping from the leaf litter are crickets. You hear mosquitoes whining. As they visit flowers, bees hum. These noises combine to form a background drone, the auditory indicator of insect population size. Some insects call for reasons we don't fully understand, while others do so to warn rivals or attract mates. Even though they are occasionally written off as noise, these sounds are a sign of a robust ecosystem. Everything from birds to bears depends on the abundance of insects, which form the base of forest food webs. The absence of insect sounds in forests is frequently a sign of habitat degradation, pesticide use, or environmental issues. Although it can be deafening at times, the chorus of summer insects is actually a delight to ecologists. It talks about diversity, abundance, and the millions of tiny lives that go uncounted but are essential to the functioning of forests. We hardly ever notice the sounds that trees make. Trees don't keep quiet. Their trunks and branches flex under the force of the wind as they sway and creak. Sharp cracking sounds may be produced in cold weather when water freezes inside the trunk. Popping sounds are caused by the hydraulic failure of water columns in xylem tissue during drought. Researchers can use sensitive equipment to detect ultrasonic clicks. These so-called cavitation events are a sign that the tree is stressed. Its water transportation system is malfunctioning. If you put your ear against the bark, you can hear the faint chewing sounds made by certain insects that feed on wood. Scientists have recently found that trees' roots and mycorrhizal networks may be able to produce even more subtle sounds. The notion that trees could communicate acoustically by clicking or buzzing through the soil is intriguing and still speculative, even though this research is still in its early stages. However, even the most obvious sounds, the creaks and the moans of stressed wood, remind us that trees are dynamic beings that are always reacting to their surroundings. Not only do animals make noises in the forest, but trees do as well. Silence in a forest, speaking their own language, can be healing and profound. Not every sound in the forest is loud. Silence, or near silence, can sometimes be the most potent acoustic experience in a forest. A forest can become incredibly quiet during the deep winter months, when many birds have migrated and insects are dormant, and when snow muffles all sound. You can hear your own breathing and heartbeat when there is no human noise, traffic, machinery, or voices. This quiet is full of potential and tranquility rather than being empty. Silence in the forest is said to have therapeutic properties by many. It permits the mind to relax, to cease its incessant chatter, and to just be. Subtle sounds come through in this silence. Your own footsteps crunching through leaves, the distant snap of a twig, or the flutter of a moth chick's wings. The forest teaches us that silence is a different kind of presence that is uncommon in contemporary life, rather than the absence of sound. It is a gift to be able to experience true silence in a forest, which serves as a reminder of what the world sounds like when we stop making noise for ourselves. As the seasons change, temperate forests undergo significant transformations. Forests are shapeshifters in areas with distinct seasons, changing their look and personality all year long. Leafing out, wildflowers, returning birds, and a riot of colour and growth are all signs of spring. Summertime brings plenty of life, deep shade, and a full canopy, when the forest is at its best. Perhaps the most noticeable change occurs in the fall, when deciduous trees lose chlorophyll and their leaves burst with colour before dropping. Deciduous forests are stripped bare by winter, exposing the structure beneath the verdant cover of summer. Forest ecology is driven by this seasonal cycle. Reproduction in many species is synchronized with seasonal resources. When insects are plentiful, birds build their nests. With the arrival of new vegetation in the spring, squirrels give birth. In order to overwinter and sprout in the spring, trees produce seeds in the fall. Seasonal abundance determines the timing of migratory animals' movements through forests. The forest is a dynamic stage rather than a static backdrop, and depending on when you visit, it will appear and behave differently. Every season has its own beauty and lessons to teach. To survive the winter, trees lose their leaves. One of nature's most beautiful phenomena is the fall of leaves in deciduous forests, but it also has a useful function. The cost of maintaining leaves is high, needing water even when the cold or darkness prevents them from photosynthesizing. Water is frequently trapped in frozen soil during the winter, making it inaccessible to roots. Deciduous trees enter dormancy when they lose their leaves, rather than risk dying from dehydration. The abscission layer, a layer of cells, closes off the junction between the leaf stem and the twig. The leaf dies and falls because it is no longer getting nutrients. By using this tactic, trees are able to withstand freezing winters that would otherwise destroy or damage their leaves. Evergreen conifers adopt a different strategy, retaining their needles while shielding them from freezing temperatures with waxy coatings and antifreeze substances. Every tactic has benefits. With their large, effective leaves, deciduous trees can grow more quickly in the summer, but evergreens can photosynthesize all year long if the right conditions are present. Seeing the leaves fall is like witnessing a survival tactic in action. To ensure that the whole survives the upcoming harsh months, the tree sacrifices parts of itself. Pigments that are exposed when chlorophyll decomposes are what give autumn its colors. The dominant green of chlorophyll hides the brilliant reds, oranges, and yellows of autumn foliage in leaves throughout the summer. Trees start to close for the winter as the days get shorter and the temperature drops. They extract the valuable nitrogen from chlorophyll by breaking it down and storing it in the roots and trunk. Other colors emerge when the green pigment is removed. Oranges and yellows are produced by carotenoids. Reds and purples are the result of anthocyanins, which are created in the fall in reaction to cold and intense light. Various species display distinctive hues. Maples frequently turn a vivid red, the golden yellow of aspen, russet brown oaks. The weather has an impact on color intensity. The most vivid displays are created on sunny days and cool nights when sugars build up in leaves and encourage the production of anthocyanins. Therefore, the fall color display is a complex physiological process rather than just leaf death. The tree is recovering its resources, safeguarding delicate parts, and getting ready to go into dormancy. It is one of nature's gifts to us that this utilitarian process yields such beauty. Magnificence in functionality. Certain trees bloom in the early spring before their leaves appear. There are trees that bloom. This technique, known as precocious flowering, makes sure that pollinators can see the flowers and that developing seeds get as much sunlight as possible. Poplars, elms, and red maples all cover their bare branches with blooms before they leaf out. It's a dangerous time. Late frosts have the potential to ruin the year's seed crop and harm flowers. However, the benefits, such as better visibility and more light, often exceed the hazards. When insects come out of their winter hibernation, these early blooms are essential. When food is limited, pollinators such as bees and flies rely on early blooming plants. Successful pollination results in seed production and genetic diversity for the trees. Temperature and day length regulate when flowers bloom, with trees essentially relying on when winter has officially ended. This timing may become out of sync with pollinator emergence in a changing climate, posing problems for insects and trees alike. The delicate timing of pollination and flowering serves as a reminder of the true interdependence of forest life. Reproduction and growth are accelerated in the spring. The forest awakens in the spring. Dormancy breaks and life bursts as the days grow longer and the temperature rises. Trees produce sap, leaves unfold, and buds swell and burst. Herbs on the forest floor bloom quickly before the canopy closes. Birds set up territories and start nesting after arriving from southern wintering grounds. Mammals are hungry and prepared to procreate when they come out of hibernation or winter lethargy. After hatching from eggs or pupae, insects take to the air and start feeding. The forest changes from being a place of peace and quiet to one of frenzied activity and plenty. The accumulated resources of winter and the growing amount of sunlight in the spring drive this spring pulse of growth and reproduction. To make new leaves, plants use the sugars they have stored. Fresh vegetation or the insects drawn to it are the food source for animals. Everything is in sync. Every species schedules its activities according to the availability of resources. In a forest, spring is intense and beautiful. Before the short summer ends, there is a race to grow, procreate, and get ready for winter. Walking through a spring forest is like being surrounded by the abundance and urgency of life. Summer is a time for growth and plenty. The forest is at its most expressive by midsummer. The canopy is finished. Leaves that are photosynthesizing as fast as possible. Ferns and plants that can withstand shade abound in the understory. Trees and shrubs start to produce fruits and seeds. When young birds leave their nests, they start to learn how to live on their own. Mammals teach their young how to find food and stay safe. The abundance of insects is at its peak. Every niche was alive with life that buzzed, crawled, or flew. Forests work the hardest during the summer. They take in sunlight and transform it into living tissue, producing leaves that will provide food for innumerable herbivores and wood that will last for decades. They yield the seeds that will grow into trees the following year or century. From the canopy to the forest floor, they sustain the most varied animal communities. The forest is at its most productive and complex during the summer. Summer forests are beautiful in their own right, even though they don't have the freshness of spring or the color of autumn. The splendor of fully developed, mature ecosystems at their best. The forest gets ready for the dormancy of winter in the fall. Forests start preparing for winter as summer draws to a close. Deciduous trees stop photosynthesis and remove nutrients from their leaves. Fruits and nuts ripen and fall, providing food for animals that need to gain weight before the lean months, or that will be sold for the winter. Only year-round residents remain as migratory birds start their journeys south. Hibernating mammals consume a lot of food, accumulating fat reserves. Puppies or eggs are left to overwinter when insects die off. Annual plants complete their life cycle when they set seed and die. Autumn is a time for planning and change. The forest reacts appropriately because it knows what is coming. Every species has evolved over millions of years to follow ancient patterns. Autumn brings with it a poignant beauty, the brightness of the foliage and the soft melancholy of the end of the year for human visitors. However, autumn serves as a practical time for the forest itself, when it shuts down non-essential operations, prepares for the impending cold, and ensures survival. The result of survival tactics is the beauty we observe. Red and gold reveal the economy of nature. Winter is a season of survival and dormancy. The forest changes in the winter. The structure of deciduous trees is exposed. Snow covers the ground, weighs down branches, and falls where it falls. Numerous animals are hibernating or have moved. The forest appears deserted, silent, and dozing. However, this appearance is misleading. Simply put, life goes on more subtly and slowly. On warm, sunny days, evergreen trees continue to photosynthesize. All year long, there are chicks and new hatches. Look for insects in cracks in the bark. Deer graze on bark and twigs. Small mammals hide from the cold by tunneling through leaf litter beneath the snow. Winter is a challenge, separating those who survived from the others. Trees with enough stored energy survive. Animals that have stored up enough fat or eaten enough food survive. Those who didn't make these preparations usually don't make it. By eliminating the weak and unlucky, winter serves as the forest's pruning season, guaranteeing that the most adapted receive the abundance of spring. Winter is harsh but necessary, a component of the cycle that keeps forests healthy. Seeing a winter forest reduced to its most basic elements is a study in endurance and form, and it is stunning in its bareness. In its rings, each tree's stories tell a tale. 1 year of growth is symbolized by the concentric rings you see when you fly through a fallen tree trunk. The ring is wide in a good year with lots of sun and rain. The ring is narrow during drought years. Layers of charred wood are fire scars. When the tree struggled, we saw several narrow rings caused by disease or insect outbreaks. Scientists can reconstruct historical climates by interpreting these rings, dating wet periods and droughts back hundreds or even thousands of years. Dendrochronology is a science that creates history books from trees. Records from the oldest living trees go back thousands of years. Because of their accurately datable rings, bristle canopies have been used to calibrate radiocarbon dating techniques and uncover climate patterns that date back to the end of the last ice age. Records can be further extended by dead wood that has been preserved in bogs or dry caves. Each tree ring represents a chapter in the environment's history, detailing the circumstances of that particular year. Reading tree rings is like reading the tree's biography and the world's history preserved in the wood itself. The forest floor is shaped by tip-up mounds formed by fallen trees. Large trees frequently pull up a mass of rock and soil when they fall, especially during windstorms. This leaves a mound where the roots were and a depression where they are now exposed. The forest floor's topography is diversified by these so-called tip-up mounds, according to ecologists. While the pit gathers water and organic matter, the mound provides drier, better-drained conditions. Each microhabitat is colonized by a different plant, increasing the overall diversity. The mound gradually disappears as the roots deteriorate. However, the impact on forest structure may persist for decades or even centuries. Long-lived forests have a lumpy floor made up of old tip-up mounds in various states of decay, dotted with the pits they left behind. Your feet are always rising and falling over these tiny hills and hollows as you walk through such terrain. Each symbolizes the passing of a tree and a shift in the structure of the forest. The forest floor is therefore a palimpsest, a multi-layered record of the forest's history, with innumerable occurrences recorded in the topography and vegetation. Each mound narrates a tale of wind and fall, rebirth and death. For thousands of years, fire has molded many forests. A lot of people believe that forest fires are only destructive. However, fire is necessary for many ecosystems. Fires have been started by lightning for millions of years, and fire has played a significant role in the evolution of many forests. Serotinous cones on certain pine species only open when heated by fire, releasing seeds into the ash-enriched soil. Because there is less competition and more nutrients available after a fire, other plants grow quickly. Animals that have adapted to burnt areas quickly return to the area. Fire preserves the structure of forests, recycles nutrients, and removes accumulated dead wood. Excluding fire causes issues in forests that have adapted to fire. As dead wood builds up, it provides fuel for fires that are abnormally intense. The invasion of shade-tolerant species alters the composition of forests. These forests become unhealthy, excessively dense, and susceptible to devastating fires if they are not burned on a regular basis. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples used fire as a management tool because they understood this. The health of many forests depends on controlled burning that closely resembles natural fire regimes, as acknowledged by modern fire ecology. In many instances, fire is the ancient ally of forests rather than their adversary. By shielding their living tissues, certain trees can withstand fire. Many trees have developed amazing defenses in forests that are prone to fire. The delicate cambium layer underneath is shielded from heat by thick bark, especially cork-like bark that insulates well. Certain species can withstand scorching because of their thick terminal buds. Others can resprout even if the above-ground portion dies because they store energy in deep roots. As seedlings, longleaf pines resemble clumps of grass during the grass stage, while their taproots grow deeply and only produce height after they have accumulated enough reserves to withstand fire. It can be depressing to walk through a freshly burned forest because the ashen ground and blackened trunks appear to be dead. However, when you return a few months later, you will see tree seedlings starting their race toward the canopy, grasses and wildflowers covering the ground, and green shoots emerging from charred stumps. The forest is not dead. Rather, it is regenerating itself through fertilization, fire, and clearing. These fire-adapted trees and their tactics serve as a reminder that disruption can occasionally present opportunities rather than always resulting in destruction. An opportunity for life to persist in different forms. Gaps created by windstorms enhance the diversity of forests. Strong winds that topple canopy trees leave gaps in the forest floor where sunlight can suddenly enter. These gaps turn into hubs for diversity and growth. Suppressed saplings that have been in the shade for decades suddenly start to grow, vying for the space. From the seed bank, species that require light germinate. Fireweed and raspberries are early successional plants. Different species can find a home in the gap than in the nearby closed canopy forest. Its patchwork of ages and conditions contributes to its overall increased diversity. Forest scientists understand that instead of upsetting forests, these natural disturbances keep them in a variety of healthy states. More species are supported by a landscape mosaic of gaps in different closure stages scattered with mature stands than by a uniform forest. Forest ecosystems depend on the natural cycle of death and rebirth, destruction and rebirth. In order to replicate the dynamics of natural gaps, modern forestry has started to apply this knowledge by thinning or making tiny clear cuts. We can better appreciate that forests are dynamic and ever-changing at small scales in order to maintain stability at larger ones when we comprehend the role of windthrow. Over time, succession progressively alters forests. An abandoned farm field doesn't stay bare forever if you leave it untended. The first to colonize are annual weeds and grasses. Shrubs and pioneer trees, such as pine, birch, or aspen, emerge in a matter of years. These early successional species, whose seeds are carried in from neighboring forests, grow rapidly in full sun. As they get older, they produce shade, which makes the environment favorable for species that can withstand it, such as hemlock, beech, and maple. A mature forest is created when these later species progressively supplant the pioneers over decades or centuries. Anywhere a disturbance produces open space, this process, known as ecological succession, takes place. Reaching what ecologists refer to as a climax forest, a comparatively stable collection of species suited to the local environment, can take centuries. Even climax forests, however, are dynamic. Natural disturbances preserve a mosaic of stages by resetting succession at small scales. Nature heals through succession. The complexity of ecosystems' recovery and reconstruction after disturbance. As you progress through successional time, from field to young woods to old growth, you can see the forest's future at every turn. Younger forests lack the structural characteristics of old-growth forests. Younger woods are very different from truly old forests, which have grown for centuries without human intervention. There are enormous trees there, some of which are getting close to reaching their species' maximum size. Snags and standing dead trees offer hunting perches and cavity nest sites. The ground is covered in fallen logs in various states of decay. Some have just fallen, while others are crumbling and covered in moss. A mosaic of ages and light conditions is created by the uneven canopy, which has gaps where old trees have died. Canopy trees with large spreading crowns have been growing for decades without much competition. Young homogeneous forests cannot match the habitat provided by these structural features. Birds that nest in cavities rely on big snags. Under decaying logs, salamanders find refuge. Old trees are necessary for lichens that need stable bark surfaces. Old growth's layers, complexity, and variety of conditions sustain species assemblages that are unique to this area. If these forests ever recover after being destroyed, it takes centuries. As living reminders of time itself, old-growth forests are therefore irreplaceable in human timescales. To pass through one is to enter a realm where time operates on a scale that is beyond our comprehension. The ability to heal. Time spent in forests enhances mental health and lowers stress. What many people intuitively know is being validated by science. Spending time in forests improves our mood. According to studies, taking a stroll through a forest lowers stress, blood pressure, and cortisol levels. Shiny yoku, also known as forest bathing, is a Japanese practice that involves spending time in forests in a mindful manner while connecting with nature through all of the senses. Participants report feeling happier, experiencing less anxiety, and having better overall health. The effects are quantifiable and real. They manifest in immune function, hormone levels, and heart rate variability. These advantages could be explained by a number of mechanisms. Forests provide a respite from the bustle and noise of the city. Their intricate visuals capture attention without requiring focus, allowing for mental relaxation. Aromatic compounds found in soil and trees may have a direct impact on our nervous systems. Our bodies may be able to relax in ways that modern life rarely allows, just by being in an environment where natural rhythms, rather than human demands, govern the environment. Buildings and screens cannot replace the healing benefits that forests offer. Spending time with trees is a biological necessity rather than a luxury. Human psychology is calmed by the color green. We are surrounded by green in forests, the hue of life and chlorophyll. Compared to other colors, green is more calming, lowering stress and encouraging relaxation, according to psychological research. Because patients heal more quickly when they are surrounded by nature, some hospitals have included views of forests or green areas. There may be deep evolutionary roots to the human preference for green. Our ancestors lived in green environments for millions of years, and those who felt at ease and vigilant there fared better. A calming atmosphere is produced by the unique quality of forest light that is filtered through leaves and tinted with green. It does not have the artificial spectrum of indoor lighting or the harsh glare of open spaces. Together with the fractal patterns of the branches and leaves, which our brains process effectively, this soft, diffused lighting helps our eyes relax. The aesthetic environment that forests offer is ideal for human perception. Forests are not just beautiful to us. We are designed to react to them by providing shelter and food. This outdated programming continues to have an impact on us. Spending time in forests makes you feel at home. Beneficial compounds from trees are present in forest air. Inhaling deeply in a forest involves more than just breathing oxygen. As part of their defense against disease and insects, trees release aromatic compounds known as phytoncides. These substances have quantifiable effects on humans, increasing immunity and lowering stress hormones. These substances, which are especially abundant in coniferous forests, are what give them their distinct aroma. Our bodies react favorably to the complex mixture of molecules that make up that fresh, resinous smell. Additionally, there are fewer pollutants in forest air than in city air. Trees absorb pollutants, filter dust, and trap particulates in their leaves. Negative ions produced by forests may boost vitality and mood, according to some research. You are actually breathing richer, cleaner air that is full of compounds that are good for your body and mind when you are walking in a forest. Inhaling deeply while surrounded by trees has quantifiable health benefits, ranging from stress reduction to immune enhancement. It makes sense that spending time in forests makes us feel renewed and invigorated. We're not speculating about the advantages. Every time we breathe, they enter our bodies. Forests' natural sounds encourage rest. Urban noise has a different effect on us than the sounds of a forest, with its rustling leaves, flowing water, and bird sounds. The jarring, repetitive characteristics of machinery and traffic are absent from natural sounds, which are typically complex and irregular. According to research, listening to natural sounds enhances mood and reduces stress more than artificial or silent sounds. Natural sounds appear to be categorized by the brain as safe, allowing for relaxation, whereas urban sounds cause stress and vigilance. According to some scientists, our brains developed to continuously scan our auditory surroundings for dangers. Birdsong is an indicator of safety in forests. When there are no predators around, birds sing, the rhythmic and soothing sounds of the wind and water. Our bodies react to these differences by relaxing in soundscapes that indicate a safe, natural environment, which lacks the sharp edges of human-made noise even when we are not aware of it. As a result, forest sounds are not only calming but also actively therapeutic, assisting our nervous systems in transitioning from stress to relaxation. The sound of a forest is therapeutic. Walking in a forest can help you be more creative and focused. People routinely score higher on tests assessing their ability to pay attention and solve creative problems after spending time in nature. According to the attention restoration theory, our mental resources are being depleted by the constant demands of modern life. Natural settings provide a variety of easy and restorative forms of attention, allowing our goal-directed systems to recuperate. This is why seemingly insurmountable problems can be resolved with a walk in the woods. The pause enables mental functions to function naturally. Nature walks have been credited with inspiring insights by numerous great thinkers. Gentle exercise, sensory stimulation without being overstimulated, and device-free time all contribute to a productive mind. The intricacy and beauty of forest settings seem to work especially well. This non-goal-oriented presence is highlighted by the Japanese idea of forest bathing, which encourages people to just be in the forest rather than go hiking with a specific purpose. Spending time in forests, whether actively walking or simply relaxing, stimulates the mind and opens up creative outlets in ways that urban settings cannot match. Forests offer areas for introspection and solitude. It's getting harder and harder to find true solitude in today's busy, noisy world. It is naturally found in forests. Once you venture far enough into the woods, the sounds of people give way to the peaceful silence of nature. Many people find it impossible to find time for introspection in their daily lives when they are alone. Thoughts can emerge and be analyzed in the absence of continual demands and stimulation. During these quiet times, significant insights frequently emerge. There were always insights, but they were obscured by chaos and bustle. This has long been recognized by various wisdom traditions. Since many spiritual practices involve retreating to untamed areas, the forest offers both psychological and physical seclusion. Permission to just exist and get off the treadmill. You're not supposed to perform or produce in a forest. Without a plan or goal, you can stand, walk, or sit. This freedom, which only comes when we stop hurrying, is valuable and uncommon because it permits true rest and introspection. Forests provide the solitude required for genuine self-knowledge, making them havens for both human souls and wildlife. The old alliances. Certain plants do not harm other plants. They only grow on them. Many plants in forests, especially tropical ones, never come into contact with the ground. Instead of paralyzing their hosts, these epiphytes use their support to grow on tree trunks and branches. Common epiphytes include orchids, bromeliads, ferns, and mosses. Their roots adhere to bark and take up moisture and nutrients from dust, rain, and decomposing plant matter. Some create complex adaptations. Tank bromeliads create numerous aquatic ecosystems that are home to tadpoles, mosquito larvae, and other organisms by collecting pools of water in the bases of their leaves. By giving habitat a new dimension, epiphytes enhance forest diversity. They give insects food and cover, give birds a place to nest, and give canopy animals water. Their existence is a sign of stable, mature, and healthy forests. Mosses and lichens make up the majority of epiphytes in temperate forests. Their diversity, however, soars in tropical forests, where some trees are home to hundreds of epiphyte species. This vertical garden serves as an example of how forests sustain life throughout their three-dimensional structure, not just at ground level. Every surface turns into a possible habitat, increasing the amount of life that a forest can support. It's possible that mycorrhizal relationships date back 400 million years. The relationship between fungi and plants is so old that it is unimaginable. Mycorrhizal associations may have existed when plants first settled on land more than 400 million years ago, according to fossil evidence. This indicates that plants relied on their relationships with fungi to extract nutrients from primitive soils as they migrated from water to land. By allowing plants to thrive in hostile terrestrial environments where nutrients were trapped in rock, this collaboration may have been crucial to the greening of the planet. Approximately 90% of plant species still have mycorrhizal relationships today. Over hundreds of millions of years, the partnership has been honed, growing in complexity and efficiency. Mycorrhizae have evolved into a variety of species, each with a unique plant partner. Because of how essential the relationship is, many plants, especially those in nutrient-poor soils, cannot thrive without their fungal partners. Terrestrial ecosystems are still shaped by this age-old partnership, which predates both flowering plants and forests. The foundations of every forest were established long ago, when life first began to exist on land. Some tree roots have nodules that are home to nitrogen-fixing bacteria. A vital component of proteins and DNA, nitrogen is necessary for life. Despite its abundance, atmospheric nitrogen is in a form that is inaccessible to the majority of organisms. The capacity to transform atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia, which plants can absorb, has evolved in certain bacteria. Certain trees, like alders and others, especially those in the legume family, develop alliances with these bacteria. Bacteria thrive in the tree's sugars and protected root nodules. The bacteria fertilize the tree directly by giving it nitrogen in exchange. In forests, these nitrogen-fixing trees are essential. As they grow, they can enrich the soil in areas where other trees find it difficult to establish themselves. When their leaf litter breaks down, the high nitrogen content fertilizes the nearby plants. Beavers frequently clear disturbed areas and riverbanks to make room for other species. Another example of a partnership that propels forest success is the relationship between bacteria and trees. Neither could survive on its own in low nitrogen environments. They show the power of cooperation in nature by working together to turn arid land into fertile soil. In mutual reliance, trees and insects form pollination partnerships. In order to reproduce, many trees rely on insects to pollinate them, moving pollen from one flower to another. Trees give food in the form of pollen and nectar in exchange. These connections can be very specific, with specific insects pollinating only specific trees, or they can be general, with many pollinator species visiting many tree species. Extreme specialization is demonstrated by fig trees and fig wasps. Wasps are unique to each species of fig, and neither can procreate without the other. The wasp lays its eggs inside the fig and pollinates it. The fig gives wasp larvae food. Millions of years have passed since the evolution of such close relationships. Each partner shapes the other. Flowers develop hues, fragrances, and forms that draw pollinators. In order to obtain nectar, insects have evolved mouthparts and behaviors. These collaborations are lovely illustrations of co-evolution, where two species co-evolve and react to each other's changes. A bee visiting a flower is an example of a long-standing relationship that has been cultivated over many generations. These collaborations are essential to forests. Many trees would not be able to reproduce without pollinators, and many insects would not be able to live without flowering trees. Tree offspring are dispersed throughout the landscape by seed dispersers. Trees have a problem. Although they are immobile, their seedlings must establish themselves apart from the parent to prevent competition for resources and light. This issue is resolved by animals. Far from the parent tree, birds consume fruits and excrete seeds. Squirrels unintentionally plant cashews and forget some. Mammals such as bears and deer spread fruits and seeds through their droppings after consuming them. Certain seeds have developed the ability to attach themselves to passing animals and catch fur. Both parties gain from these dispersal partnerships. Fruits and seeds provide nourishment for animals. Trees disperse, with their progeny moving throughout the terrain in search of favorable germination locations. During migration seasons, when birds will carry hundreds of kilograms of seeds, some trees bear fruits that are precisely timed to ripen. Others yield dense, nutrient-dense nuts that squirrels compulsively collect, establishing future forests in their caches. These dispersal partnerships are reflected in the spatial pattern of the forest or the arrangement of trees throughout the terrain. Animals work together over many generations to plant a portion of every forest. Tree roots have hidden connections that go well beyond the spread of their canopy. A tree's visible space is defined by its canopy above ground, but its roots spread out much more widely below. The majority of tree roots are concentrated in the top meter of soil and extend horizontally well beyond the branch's drip line. Neighboring trees' root systems entwine to form a dense underground network. Sometimes, in an attempt to find water and nutrients, roots will spread out 2 or 3 times as wide as the canopy. This vast root system links the tree to resources over a large area and stabilizes it, preventing wind throw. Trees are also physically and microbially connected to one another through root systems. Tree roots may graft together when they come into contact, sharing nutrients and water. When combined with fungal relationships, this results in a forest where trees are part of an underground community, rather than being solitary individuals. Through the flow of resources, the forest is held together, and trees in need are supported. Only half of the story is revealed by what we can see above ground. The true foundation of the forest is created by a world of fungi and roots that are beneath it, invisible but vital. Water flows continuously from the soil through trees and into the atmosphere. In essence, a tree is a pump that transfers water from the soil to the atmosphere. Through a process known as transpiration, water that has been absorbed by the roots moves up through the trunk's xylem vessels, out through the branches, and eventually evaporates from the leaf surfaces. Evaporation is what propels this upward flow, drawing water up from below like a straw being sucked through. It is astounding how much water has been moved. Hundreds of liters of water vapor can be released into the atmosphere each day by a large tree. There are several uses for this water movement. It provides leaves with dissolved nutrients from the soil. It uses evaporation to cool the tree. It keeps the tree upright by maintaining turgor pressure. Additionally, it helps with local water cycles by forming clouds with transpired water that could eventually turn into rain. In addition to being collections of trees, forests actively participate in the hydrological cycles that transport water from the earth to the sky. These water flows stop when forests are cleared, which frequently lowers local rainfall and changes stream flows. Another service that these ecosystems offer is the forest's function in water cycling. Trees use the air to transmit chemical signals. A tree will produce defensive chemicals to make its leaves less edible or even poisonous in response to herbivore attacks. However, the answer doesn't end there. Additionally, the damaged tree emits volatile organic compounds into the atmosphere, which are chemical cues that other trees in the vicinity can detect. Even though they haven't been attacked yet, these nearby trees start making their own protective compounds in anticipation of the danger. This phenomenon, which has been observed in a number of species, implies that trees are able to alert one another to danger. Although research on the mechanisms is ongoing, the ramifications are significant. Trees are active defenders who can react to threats and even warn their neighbors, rather than passive victims. It is debatable whether this is genuine communication or just advantageous eavesdropping, but the result is obvious. Forests react to dangers as a group. Being a part of an information-sharing community is beneficial to individual trees. Unbeknownst to us, these chemical exchanges take place continuously and significantly influence forest dynamics. The forest seems to be speaking in languages we are just starting to learn. Forest ecosystems are made resilient through symbiotic relationships. There are partnerships everywhere in forests. Plants and pollinators, trees and seed dispersers, fungi and trees. These connections are essential to the way forests work and are not optional extras. Mutuality. When various species coexist in close proximity, networks of interdependence are formed that fortify the system as a whole. These connections offer resilience in the face of disruption. Other species may take over a species' role if it declines, or its partners may aid in its recovery. Forests are more stable than collections of separate organisms could ever be because of this web of relationships. As resources move through networks, individual failures are mitigated. Coordinated responses are made possible by the dissemination of information via fungal and chemical pathways. Numerous interactions result in the emergent property that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It is necessary to comprehend these relationships in order to comprehend forests. Realizing that each organism depends on and is supported by others in order to exist. The forest is a community rather than a collection of individuals, and preserving the ties that hold it together is essential to its health. The tree's wisdom. Centuries of human history have been witnessed by ancient trees. Before written history began, some trees that are still alive today first appeared. They have endured wars and peace, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the transition from bronze to digital technology. In some locations, a tree that was planted during the height of the Roman Empire is still standing. Over 2 millennia, its rings document changes in the climate. The surrounding landscapes have changed in front of these ancient witnesses. Cities are constructed and then abandoned, and forests are cleared and then regrown. Silent and patient, they endure as human generations come and go like the seasons. Standing next to a tree like that is like feeling the weight of time. Only a small portion of this tree's existence encompasses your entire life, as well as the lives of your grandparents and their grandparents. It provides insight into human issues and serves as a reminder that we are only passing guests in a much larger narrative. These old trees are priceless treasures, living reminders of the distant past and symbols of forbearance and perseverance. They teach us that survival sometimes entails just overcoming obstacles year after year, ring after ring, and that gradual growth can accomplish what haste never can. Trees show adaptation and tenacity by growing toward the light. If you observe a tree, you will notice that it is not passive, but rather is always changing. A phenomenon known as phototropism occurs when branches grow in the direction of light sources. Growth concentrates on the side that gets more light, resulting in an uneven crown. In deep shade, seedlings develop slowly while they wait for an opening. They leap upward in a hurry to catch the light when a gap opens. Despite being stationary, trees are dynamic and continuously sense and react to their surroundings, as evidenced by their responsiveness. Many people find meaning in this metaphor of growth toward light. We can align ourselves with what supports us, just like trees do, modifying our course when conditions shift. Trees show that you don't have to move to grow, that you can overcome obstacles with patience and persistence, and that it's more important to react to conditions wisely than to move quickly. Each reaching branch and curved trunk narrates a tale of adaptation in the face of adversity. Trees don't gripe about competition or shade. They just keep expanding, figuring out how to live and prosper in spite of obstacles. Thousands of different organisms can coexist with a single tree. A fully grown tree is an ecosystem rather than a single organism. Its bark is home to insects, mosses, and lichens. Birds eat the caterpillars that are fed by its leaves. Its blooms yield pollen and nectar. Mice, jays, and squirrels eat its seeds. Bats, woodpeckers, and owls are housed in its cavities. Its roots collaborate with bacteria and fungi. Beetles are fed by fungi found on dead branches. The tree's presence creates favorable conditions for nearby organisms by regulating humidity and temperature. A single tree can support thousands of species, all of which rely on it in one way or another. This speaks to a greater reality. Each of us is a part of an interdependent web. Humans and other organisms cannot survive on their own. We rely on innumerable people, frequently without realizing it. This is made evident by trees. Their habitat role is so evident that it is impossible to overlook. They serve as a reminder to think about how we fit into bigger systems. Are we helping other people? Whether literally or figuratively, we are establishing a home where life can thrive. Trees serve as a living example, demonstrating that sometimes the most significant contribution is just to remain steadfast and provide food, shelter, and support to those in need. Forests' gradual growth teaches patience. Forests work on different timescales in a world of instant results and rapid change. A tree takes centuries to grow to its full size and decades to mature. Over many generations, forests gradually become more complex. A forest cannot be hurried. Trees can be planted, but it will take time for them to develop the relationships and structure that characterize mature woodlands. Although this slowness irritates contemporary sensibilities, it also imparts valuable lessons. Not everything can be rushed. Real development and growth take time. This knowledge is not limited to forestry. Time and patience are necessary for deep learning, meaningful relationships, and skill mastery. Forests serve as a reminder that pushing speed frequently yields mediocre outcomes. In their early years, the strongest trees, those that can withstand stress and storms, grew slowly, producing deep roots and dense wood. Rapid growth produces brittle wood that is prone to breaking. Slow and steady often prevails in life, just like in forests. Forests teach us to be patient and to believe that hard work over time yields results that shortcuts can't. The forest endures by embracing loss and change. Forests survive by embracing disturbance rather than avoiding it. When trees die, gaps are left. Dead wood is cleared by the fire. Giants are destroyed by storms. Weakened trees are killed by insects. Despite their apparent destructiveness, these disturbances contribute to the health of the forest by preserving diversity and fostering opportunities for renewal. The forest adapts to change rather than fighting it. Every generation builds upon the one before it. Every disruption creates a chance. This adaptability-based resilience is a potent model. Change and loss are unavoidable in our lives. Suffering results from resisting them. Forests offer an alternative. Recognize change as a natural part of the cycle. Have faith that loss leads to growth. Recognize that endings make room for new beginnings. For the following generation, the fallen tree serves as a nurse log. The regenerated forest is more varied than it was previously. There is no waste. Everything changes. This viewpoint contextualizes loss as a part of a broader pattern in which life and death are partners rather than adversaries, without discounting the harsh reality of loss. The forest's tenacity stems from accepting change as the catalyst for rebirth rather than resisting it. Forests around the world are changing due to climate change. Although forests have previously withstood changes in the climate, the current rate of warming is unheard of in human history. As a result of temperature changes, species ranges are changing, with cold-adapted trees spreading northward and decreasing in southern regions. In certain areas, droughts are growing more frequent and severe, which stresses trees and leaves them open to disease and insects. As winters get warmer, pests can now survive in previously uninhabitable areas. As conditions shift in favor of various communities, the species composition of some forests is changing. These alterations serve as a reminder that forests are dynamic and constantly adapt to their surroundings. Some will adjust, changing in makeup but continuing. Others might vanish and be replaced by various forest types or grasslands. The rate of change makes it difficult for forests to adapt. Trees may not be able to keep up with changing climate zones because they migrate slowly and reproduce over decades. Adaptation is made more difficult by human activity, landscape fragmentation, and the construction of migration barriers. In the upcoming decades, our beloved forests might look different, delivering harsh lessons about the effects of swift environmental change. Forests are preserved for future generations in protected areas. Because of their importance, societies all over the world have designated protected forests. Forests are protected from logging, clearing, and development by national parks, wilderness areas, nature reserves, and indigenous territories. There are several uses for these protected areas: preserving carbon stores, safeguarding watersheds, preserving biodiversity, and offering outdoor spaces for people to enjoy their future financial commitments. Making sure that future generations will understand forests, not just read about them, but protection is insufficient on its own. Even protected areas are affected by climate change. Furthermore, invasive species and air pollution know no bounds. In addition to protection, forests require active stewardship and careful management that enables them to adjust to shifting environmental conditions. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples have managed forests sustainably, making them frequently the best stewards. Their expertise and methods can teach us about contemporary conservation. Combining scientific knowledge with traditional wisdom is essential for the future of forests. Acknowledging human responsibility as a component of forest systems, not something distinct from them, while also respecting the complexity of nature. Damaged landscapes can be restored with the aid of reforestation. It is possible to replant forests that have been cleared. Globally, reforestation initiatives are planting trees on degraded areas in an effort to sequester carbon and restore ecological function. However, merely planting trees is insufficient. Planting species that are suitable for the location is essential for successful reforestation, defending young trees from competition, browsing, and impatience while the forest grows. In general, native species perform better than non-native ones, and forests with mixed plantings of several species are more resilient and diverse than those with monocultures. Reforestation that is most successful frequently involves letting nature handle a large portion of the work. Planting may not always be as effective as protecting an area and letting it regenerate naturally. Trees naturally colonize the area as they adapt to it. By removing obstacles to natural recovery while allowing the forest to grow naturally, assisted natural regeneration blends the wisdom of nature with human assistance. These methods acknowledge that we cannot construct a forest in the same manner as we construct a building. Although we can plant seeds and saplings, the intricate relationships and structures that make up a forest are formed over time by natural processes. Being humble and admitting that nature is more skilled at creating forests than humans is necessary for restoration. In urban areas, urban forests offer vital ecosystem services. Whether they are street trees, park forests, or backyard plantings, trees in urban areas offer advantages that go well beyond their physical size. They provide habitat for birds and other wildlife, filter air pollution, absorb stormwater runoff, cool urban heat islands, shade buildings, and use less energy. Research indicates that communities are stronger, crime rates are lower, and mental health outcomes are better in neighborhoods with more trees. Urban forests are just as vital to infrastructure as water or road systems, delivering services that a technological replacement would cost billions of dollars. It is becoming more widely acknowledged that growing urban forests is essential to making cities habitable in a warming world. However, trees do not fare well in cities. Heat, drought, pollution, compacted soil, and restricted root space. Urban foresters are creating plans to support the growth of trees. The objective is to create adapted urban forest communities that offer the greatest benefits, not to replicate natural forests, through improved planting methods and the selection of stress-tolerant species. Urban forests serve as people's main link to nature as more people move into cities. Having trees in every neighborhood is both a practical necessity and an act of environmental justice. The secret to sustainable forest management lies in indigenous knowledge. Indigenous peoples practiced sustainable forest management long before modern forestry. In addition to providing resources, traditional methods such as controlled burning, sacred grove preservation, and selective harvesting preserved the health of the forest. Stories, customs, and connections to particular locations all contain this knowledge that has been accumulated over thousands of years. Indigenous managed forests frequently have higher biodiversity and better carbon storage than many protected areas, according to research that is beginning to acknowledge the importance of traditional ecological knowledge. It is not only morally right, but also pragmatic to uphold indigenous rights and integrate traditional knowledge into forest management. Despite managing an estimated 22% of the planet's land area, indigenous peoples protect 80% of its remaining biodiversity. Their success stems from their close-knit knowledge of particular locations that has been passed down through the generations, and from worldviews that sees people as a part of nature rather than something distinct from it. Combining scientific knowledge with this traditional wisdom may be crucial for the future of forests. Forests have supported indigenous peoples for thousands of years because they understand that various knowledge systems provide complementary insights. Indigenous peoples may now play a key role in maintaining forests. Everyone can contribute to the preservation of local and distant forests. Despite their apparent distance from everyday life, forests are impacted by the decisions we make. Purchasing paper and wood products from sustainable sources lessens the need for destructive logging. Forest peoples and the forests they care for are protected when indigenous rights are upheld. Even in tiny yards, planting native trees and preserving existing ones helps to link disparate forests and increase habitat. Cutting back on consumption decreases the demand for goods that cause deforestation. Resources for restoration and protection are made available by supporting conservation organizations. Building a constituency that values forests can be as simple as mindfully visiting them with wonder and respect. Humans and forests don't have to have a negative relationship. As long as forests continue to exist, we can take what we need. We are able to see how preserving forests benefits us personally, supplying wholesome water, a steady climate, and spiritual support. The future of the forest is inextricably linked to the future of humanity. They are entangled. Every forest we visit or defend, every tree we plant, is an investment in a habitable earth. We have benefited greatly from the forest's oxygen, food, materials, beauty, and tranquility. Maybe we now owe the forest our gratitude, our caution, and our protection. We are now at the end of our forest journey, dear listener. From the smallest mycorrhizal threads woven through soil to the ancient trees that have stood for thousands of years, from birdsong in the morning to the quiet labor of decomposers, we have traveled together through a world of green and growth, death and renewal, connection and community, from the wildflowers of spring to the golden fall of autumn. The secrets of the forest have been revealed. That patience is powerful. That collaboration makes survival more robust. That shift is a component of endurance. That every conclusion leads to a new beginning. It has demonstrated to us the webs that bind all life and the partnerships between species. It has provided us with sights and sounds that soothe our nerves and re-establish a connection to rhythms that go beyond our everyday worries. The forest serves as a haven, a teacher and a healer, offering everything and making no requests. Allow these words to fade into the background as you rest here. Suppose you are in a forest. Maybe you've only ever dreamed of it, or maybe you know about it. Feel the cushioned ground beneath you, made by years of leaves falling. Take in the heady aroma of soil and vegetation. Hear a bird calling in the distance, a wind whispering through branches, or the soft rustle of tiny lives going about their daily lives. Watch as dappled light dances across the bark and fern as it filters through the canopy. The forest is patient. It'll wait for you to come by. When you arrive, it will greet you with open arms, offering everything without asking. Its trees are prepared to provide you with cover. Its pathways are prepared for your footsteps. Its tranquility is prepared to enter your heart. There is no hurry in the forest. Here, time passes differently, not in hours and minutes, but in seasons and growth rings. You can rest in this timeless location. Slow your breathing to the beat of the forest. Like the flow of sap through xylem, it is both deep and effortless, similar to roots absorbing soil moisture, similar to how leaves exhale oxygen and breathe in sunlight. You participate in this ancient dialogue between the air and the earth. Every tree, plant, and organism that has ever engaged in photosynthetic activity is connected to you through your breath. The forest is more closely related to you than you may think. Imagine yourself merging with the forest as you fall asleep. Like a tree, your body is rooted in the earth. Your thoughts broaden to encompass the surroundings. No longer contained, they are now extending like branches. Here, you are protected by something greater than yourself. The forest has endured for centuries and millennia through seasons and storms. This night, and you with it, will endure. Now let yourself be carried by the forest. Allow its patience to slow down your thinking. Let its gloom be consoling rather than frightening, a soft blanket that lets you sleep. Allow its sounds to serve as your lullaby. The oldest music ever heard by humans. You are going back in time, to a time when your ancestors slept beneath leaves and woke up to the sound of birdsong. You're at home. This is all the forest asks of you tonight. Get some rest. Get a good night's sleep. If you have any dreams, they should be of green growing things. And be aware that forests are standing in the dark somewhere, holding space, breathing softly, and waiting for light. They set an example for us. Sometimes all that needs to be done is to persevere, to remain strong, and to gradually and steadily grow closer to the light. If you haven't already, close your eyes. Feel your body's weight, as real and substantial as a tree trunk, as steady as wind through leaves. Feel the rise and fall of breath. You are a part of the community, the cycle, and the age-old pattern of life that flows through you and through forests. You don't have anything to do or anywhere to be right now. You should be exactly where you are. Like it has done for innumerable others, the forest keeps watch over you. Its existence is auspicious and auspicious. Everyone who enters with an open heart is given free grace. Get that present right away. Allow it to bring you tranquility. Let it soothe anxious thoughts and ease anxiety. The forest offers its own eternal restfulness as a gift because it understands your need for rest. Now go to sleep, my love. Rest beneath the trees of memory and imagination. Rest in the embrace of the forest, cradled by something more sage and ancient than anxiety or fear. Knowing that you are a part of something vast and beautiful allows you to sleep soundly and deeply. The forest will continue to exist for a very long time after you have left. Your worries are gently held in its presence before being let go and returning to earth like leaves. Breathe, rest, dream, and simply be. When the time is right, you can listen to the next journey if you are still awake, but just let go if your eyes are heavy and you want to go to sleep. Tomorrow and the following day, the forest will be present, and just as it has always waited, it waits patiently for all of your days. And you have a forest seed in your heart, a memory of growth and green that nothing can take away. Rest well and have a good night's sleep, and may you awaken feeling rejuvenated, bringing the tranquility of the forest into your day.